In the mood.
Okay, it is live streamed and we are on. So, everybody, welcome to SongNet. We have a few people that have already logged in, and of course, being musicians, everybody's going to be coming in at random times, but that's okay. Tonight, we've got a very special guest, one of my good friends, Alex Del Zoppo. He's been in this community for many, many years, and he's also helped do a whole lot of things as well. Um, he Tom, and a few other people that have been around for a while, had a thing called Songwriter's Vantage, which is still online. If you look for it, there's plenty of stuff in YouTube that you'll be able to see. That's very cool. And then also, you'll be able to see a lot of interesting stuff that went on even before that, because Alex has been part of different events as well. But tonight, I wanted to kind of pick his brain a little bit about some of the things that happened before, because one of the things that I've personally noticed, and maybe some of you have too, is that the music industry is, coming full circle. It used to be at one point where everything was independent, it was Wild West, and small labels were dominating everything, and everything was regional. People were hearing great bands on regional radio and at regional clubs. And so there were artists that were really huge, like in New York, but you'd never hear them here in LA. Well, thanks to a whole lot of things, then of course, as radio expanded, the world came closer together through different kinds of communication. Then eventually it became a world community where everybody could hear any kind of music. But once again, that created new problems because now there was so much new music out there that everybody started getting lost. And so now it's become full circle where there's a lot of small independent labels and a lot of small independent places that are starting to promote music again. But because they are smaller, they're able to focus on their artists that much more. And as a result, these artists are not getting lost. And when you think about it, it's more about the music because people are hearing the music and they love the music. It's not necessarily that they're regional, and that's exciting. I remember when I first got into this industry, having 1,000 people hear your stuff is like, wow, that's amazing. And in this day and age, of course, major artists will be getting millions and millions of people listening to their stuff, and that's amazing. But the reality is that even if you get 1,000 people listening to your stuff, that's more than most people will still ever get. So I'm really excited about what's going on because now all the independent artists like ourselves have a shot, and I think it'll be a really good shot. And of course, because of that, the culture and the music and everything else will be improving that much more. So, Alex, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I was glad to bump into you a few weeks ago. I didn't even know that you were running that show there that night. So that was an extra surprise for me.
Yeah. So I wanted to start off by just asking you a little bit about Woodstock because that's one of the things that you're more well known for. How did that all happen? I mean, you had the band, and then how did you get the call, and then kind of pull it up from there? What happened after you got the call and stuff.
So I've got to start from before that, or it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, yeah.
I can get talkative sometimes. So back in the summer of '67, yes, I'm old. In '67, we put together a band in LA City College, and we were mostly just jamming at nights and stuff. We were all in the music scene there, and we were studying music, more legitimate than stuff we were playing. But we'd go out at night and we'd play in the coffee shops, at coffee houses, and stuff that were around, and that sort of thing. And we were mostly just a jam band, and we did that for about a year, and it was really good for my chops, so I kind of dug it. But a lot of times it was pretty, you know, like broken glass. It really looks good, and then all of a sudden you come to a section that just sounds like crap, and that's where that's drugs and so forth. But so one night we were playing in there, and this young girl was in there, and she was bopping around singing along with the instrumentals that we were playing. And we, of course, were playing for a half hour every time before we took a break. And we had a flute player in the middle of our thing. We had an unusual band to begin with. It was a flute, cello, congas, regular drums, electric bass, no guitar, and me on keys. So we officially never had a guitar player in that band. Only when we finally got signed by Warner Brothers a year later, they said we got to put a guitar player on the cover or people won't know it's a rock band. Yeah, okay. Anyway, but long story short, we were sitting there and she walked in and she's singing. And so our flute player beckons her up on stage, like, hey, it kind of sounds good, what she was singing. We were just doing an instrumental. She comes up and she sings an old spiritual, Motherless Child. And she did it in a really unique way because it had to fit with what we were doing. And right away, I realized she's sharp. She knows what she's doing. She made this thing fit. I knew the song myself, which was very different from the way she did it because we had started first and she, folded into that. And then she got a big, large round of applause and she left. And we didn't find her for about 3 months. And then finally we located her and said, do you want to be in a band? And the reason we couldn't find her, this is kind of important too. We thought she was a student at LA City College, but turns out she was 17 and she was a high school student at the time. So that created an issue, and we found her. And then at that time she was like graduating and, she was going to be 18, et cetera, et cetera. And we said, we'd like to put something together and use you. And I already sang because we used to play in bars for years before that, even since junior high. We played at frat parties and stuff because, booze and older women, the allure of all that stuff. But, when you play those things over and over again, you learn a bunch of different stuff and you learn how to balance stuff and everything. And so we put this thing together and we kept some of the qualities that we had and we changed some of the other things, but we just started to practice and practice and practice. So in the summer of 67, while we were practicing, because we wanted to be perfect by the time we went out for the first time, and we didn't even have a name yet. And we kept hearing this stuff about Monterey pop, and we didn't really know what that was. And so we thought, okay, what's pop? We know where Monterey is, but and it turns out they had fashioned this word that allowed different kinds of music to be played, all popular types of music to be played at this festival. So we thought, wow, music festival, how cool! And we all went up there in a couple of cars, and honestly didn't have like a dime between us, nothing. So we slept in the cars and under the cars, and we washed up in the nearby river. And we wanted to see what this was about. And you could walk around and hear everything. You had to pay money to get into the arena, but you could hear it just as well as anyone else could. You didn't have to be sitting in a seat. And we had this goal before we started. We were going to find somebody who will get us into the whiskey to play there so that we could get signed like the Doors. That was the quote. It seemed like it was going to be easy, like, oh, this is a plan. But as it turns out, once we saw that, it was like, screw the whiskey, let's do this. Let's see if we can play outdoors in front of a lot of people. That seemed like the most fun thing we could have ever imagined. And that's what we ended up doing. So we practiced again. We just practiced and practiced and practiced. And then we were about ready. And a good friend of ours, who was a kind of a guru, an older guy he was with all these different bands in the past. He had written songs for the Byrds and so forth, and hung out with everybody who played at the Troubadour at that time. The Association, the Eagles, all these people came out of the Troubadour. And he said, but if you want the whiskey, we can do that. And he says, But if you really want to play outdoors, why don't you play a love-in? And it's like, a love-in, but they don't pay anything. And he says, doesn't matter. You'll make connections here. And he was right. We auditioned. Imagine auditioning for a love-in, but that's the way they worked it. It was associated with the LA Free Press, which was at the time the big hippie newspaper, the underground paper. And there was already there was names on the bill. There was trying to think the Inagata Davida guys. What was the name of that band? Jimmy knows.
Iron Butterfly.
Butterfly. Yeah, and a couple other people who were on the radio, and we of course were not on the radio, so we came on in the afternoon, and the MC was Elliot Mintz, and that's what he was doing at the time, and so we get off the stage, and he says, "Do you guys have representation?" We had no idea what he was talking about, and so he says, well, like a manager. We go, oh, no, not really. And he said, well, there's somebody here that wants to manage you. It was ridiculous. It was like, it just happened, that day. And the guy turned out to be sort of a dud, but he was an in-between guy. And 2 weeks later, we were set to play the whiskey because he had gone to another guy who was a real manager. And that guy became our manager all that time. And so after having played the love-in and loved it. I mean, there was a couple thousand people there because of the name people on the bill. So it was, we kind of fulfilled what we wanted to see if we could do. And we started playing the whiskey a lot. And it was just in and out for several weeks. And then it turns out that Janis Joplin was going to be re-signed by somebody. They were going to lose her band, which are really cool. They were cool people and cool players in their own way. And then they were probably a little bit too loose for her. And, the labels wanted her to be, more whatever. And, her as a front person and not the band singing and stuff. And so that's kind of what labels do. That's another thing, Jimmy, I mean, that's sometimes they aim you in a direction you don't want to go in. But
Alex, at this point, were you playing all originals or a mix of covers and originals or covers or what?
the cover we played was Mother of Child, because she had first sang that with us, and it kind of moved people. Otherwise, they were all originals. And I wrote most of them because I was the most pop guy at the time. The other guys were instrumentalists basically. And then eventually they started writing stuff too. And it was a very interesting band. We did 3 studio albums and a couple of live ones that Warner Brothers chose to hang up for a while, But long story short, so we're getting to the question Jimmy had, and that was, or whoever had it. And around that time, we did get signed. We got signed on the same night they came in to sign Janis Joplin, because she was not going to be with Big Brother and the holding company anymore. And there was a lot of record company people there, and we got signed that night. It was wacky. It happened. And we actually, one of the people that wanted us was Warner Brothers, and we liked Warner Brothers at the time. And Mo Austin, the famous Mo Austin from the early days there in 68 was, he was interested in us and he signed us. And so we set about to make an album and so forth and so on. And we, in between, like on, when we're not in the studio, we'd go on these short tours. And we were already starting to play outside a lot where we could, where there was an opportunity. And our manager found us something called the Miami Pop Festival. And we had never played in Florida, but we went there. It was December of 68. And somehow it just worked. People liked us. What can I say? And we got all kinds of accolades and crap. So we were suddenly booked for Florida for the next 3 months. We didn't want to do that. So we made it work out so that we could go there sporadically and do stuff. And we were building a base already. It was kind of interesting. We had nothing to do with it. It was our manager. He had connections, and one of the people he had connections with in Florida was Michael Lang. So Michael Lang was the guy who started Woodstock. He's the guy that thought about it, got promoters and people who had money and invested in it. And, you know, when it came time for him to do that, we were on the bill. That's kind of what happened. And honest to God, there's a story that that sounds so ridiculous that people wouldn't believe it. At the time, I was one of the very, very few short-haired people in music, in pop music, because I was still in the military. They had drafted me in '65, and I didn't want to go in the Army or Marines, and that's what they were doing. They were just sending everybody in there. So I had 21 days to make up my mind, and I joined the Air Force Reserves. And I thought, you know, I'll probably live through this stupid war if I do this. And I did. I joined them. I was, you know, boot camp and training and all that stuff. And then I became a ground radio repairman. I thought that was a pretty safe thing to do. Turned out it wasn't, but it's okay. I was a reservist. And so I spent over a year, about a year and a quarter, year and 4 months or something with the military. And then from then on, I was just going to meetings. And then I started realizing, you know, you only meet one weekend a month, but if your band is playing on that weekend, that's a problem. So that was always an issue. And I had to cut my hair every month to go to these meetings. So that was a real issue for me. And so when they said, okay, here's what's happening, you know, at Woodstock, it's going to be Saturday and Sunday. And if need be, it can roll over into Monday. And I said, you know, that Saturday is the day I'm supposed to be back in Riverside, California at a 2-week training session, which the reserves also do. And he said, well, you know, let's see what we can work out. The next thing we knew, they had opened up Friday. You look at the Woodstock thing and you'll see that they didn't have Friday at first, and then they opened it up and we were able to do it, but only if we were the first band on the first day, so that I could get out of there, you know, take a limo to New York City, get on a plane and sleep on the plane to California, and then be, you know, bright and bushy tail the next morning at my reserve thing for 2 weeks. And we were also booked at the end of that on a Monday at another pop festival in Texas International Pop Festival in Dallas. And so it was really tight, but the problem is we were the first band on, and the streets were just jam-packed. You couldn't move. And all these little roads that led to where the thing was being held were just jam-packed. And so they were waiting for us to show up there, and then they put on Richie Havens for one, and there was a Maharishi there blessing the whole thing and all that. So it was just a mess. And by the time we went on, we were not the first band. We were like the fourth band. And but they were,
Excuse me.
oh yeah. Do you have a question? Question? No? Okay. So the whole thing was, you know, the best laid plans and all that. So by the time we went on, it was already getting cold and foggy. And so they weren't flying the helicopters anymore. And that's how they flew us in from the twisty little roads out there. And so we were counting on one of those to get out of there on time so I could get back to the Holiday Inn that everyone was staying on. it's about 20 miles from where the site was. And we didn't know our ways around or anything, but all of a sudden we had played our set, we were done. We did well, we were happy with it. But I knew I was late, and I knew I was a dead duck, and I was already on the Air Force's list. They were Jimmy's smiling, but they were trying to individually activate me, put me with a different a different squadron, and then that would have maybe sent me to Vietnam and all that, and that was just pure punishment. And I thought, man, I gotta make this work somehow. So we caught a chopper out of there, and in the middle of trying to find his way through the fog, the guy literally says, "Hey, I'm going to run out of fuel pretty soon, but I know how to find this little regional airport, and I'm going to have to drop down in there, and you guys can sleep in the chopper if you want." He says, "But I'm going to drop it down in there and then leave." And he says, "Plus they closed the airport." And it was just like a comedy. And so I knew now I'm screwed. I'm not going to be able to get back there at all. There's no way to do that. And so we're in the airport. He leaves and he says, "Yeah, I'm leaving it open. You can sleep in there," because it was drizzling too. And he said, "So you won't get wet." And so, we waited till morning, and thank God there was a payphone there. And we called the Holiday Inn, and our roadie was there. And he says, "So what happened to you?" I said, "Nothing happened to me. We're stuck here." And he says, "Well, I'm going to ask the people here how to find my way there." Remember, there was no GPS. There was no cell phones, nothing. The guys that were the liaison people from the site had walkie-talkies, and that saved us getting there. That saved us a little bit getting out of there. But I was late. I was a day and a half late. And when I got finally to my base, which was March Air Force Base in Riverside, California, I was a day and a half late. And they were just, they were mad as hell. But I had bought all these newspapers in JFK Airport because I wanted to show them that was the biggest story in New York. And it was a pretty big story everywhere else too, actually. Woodstock was a big story in those days. But I wanted to show them the aerial views of all the roads blocked for 15, 20 miles around. And so I bought these newspapers. And when I walked in, I showed them, the newspapers. And I said, "We were working there. See, here's my backstage pass. And here's the limo that we had there. They were on these cards." And, they didn't care. They didn't care at all. They said, "Well, we're going to talk to the brass about it." And so for the 2 weeks that I was out there, I had no connection to my people. They were all still in New York and headed for the next place, which was going to be Dallas. And at the end of the thing, they said, "Well, we made a decision. We're not going to do anything serious with you right now, but you are definitely on the list more than you ever were. And the next one little screw up thing that you do or miss a meeting or something, you're going to be put into another squadron and probably sent to Vietnam. So you better watch your P's and Q's." And I was very aware of that. So he gives me back the rolled up newspapers. I don't know if they ever looked at them. And, I was sweating it out for the next 6 months or so. And then amazingly, when my time had run out with the Air Force, in other words, I had fulfilled my deal with them, I was still, I did well with them. I did what I had to do, and I didn't screw up after that. But it was the same month that Nancy had an accident, our singer, and she was knocked unconscious for about 2 weeks, and we didn't know if she was going to live or not. Somebody was in a car going 70, and all the people on the freeway she was on had stopped, and this guy just plowed in the back of her, and her car looked like an accordion. It was all ziggy zaggy, and she hit her head on the top and was unconscious for the whole time. They saved her life, and we were worried that she had maybe lost some of her memory or something, and she didn't. But she lost her voice, which was a kind of a death knell for the band. We didn't realize it, but we waited to do recording with her, and we waited almost 2 years between albums. And people didn't do that then. That was not a good thing. But that's what we did. And we finally came in, we put bits and pieces together, used her voice where it worked. She couldn't sing quite as loud and powerful as she used to. And we didn't want to exchange someone else for her because it just seemed like it wasn't the right thing to do. And so, that was that. And we went out and we played as the guys without her for about another year and a half because we had bookings all that time. And then toward the end of that period, we just, we thought, well, maybe it's about time to give this up. And that's kind of what we did. And the money was getting funny with different places and this and that, management, so forth. And that's how we got to play Woodstock. And that's also my personal story in there. And it's sort of ridiculous, but that's what we did. And about a year after that, we still kept playing, but it got weirder and weirder. And then we just split up, and it made sense to split up for tax reasons and stuff. And that was that. We had done 3 albums, studio albums, and it was a great experience. And we had fans, but we couldn't quite make it work unless we replaced her and went out and did it. And we didn't want to do that because she was our friend and all that. And we still kept playing pop festivals, which was interesting for a while. But we were not like second lining the headliner anymore. We were like third lining or fourth lining and that sort of thing. So we had lost some, we definitely were down a notch, and we did the best we could. But then flash forward to like 1999, and VH1 thought that the entire story was very interesting, and they made a movie about us. And that was a godsend. It just came out of nowhere, and they wanted to do pretty much the true story, but they didn't want to do some parts of it. They didn't want to talk about the military. So I thought, well, to me that was the most important part of the whole thing. But they made it kind of a typical VH1 thing where, it was a kind of a drug thing, and Nancy went off into the zones and ruined the band. But it didn't really happen that way. It happened because she got clobbered by a drunk driver who hit her at 70 miles an hour when she was sitting still. But the movie it brought us back again. She came back, and she'd had 3 operations on her vocal cords, and we hadn't seen her for almost 20 years. She disappeared and went to Orange County, and we didn't see her. We got in touch again, and we started doing it again, and we started playing again, and we were not bad. We did that throughout the 90s. Although we had been a stadium band, we went down to kind of a House of Blues size band, and so it was okay. But the movie just did wonderful things for us, and a kind of a proof of how things were going. I made more money on the songs I wrote that they used in that movie than I did for the entire time we were touring live, all the years we had been together, which shows, how things had changed and how little money there was in playing live. And it's funny because it's like the reverse. And it's just a strange, all these weird coincidences come back. I guess the moral of this thing is never give up. There's always something there, And another thing is that when we found Nancy again in the 90s, like mid 90s, we found out that the other guys in our band had 3 of them have died, and we weren't even in touch with 2 of them, and so we couldn't quite have the same band. So we changed things a little bit, And one day we were sitting around practicing, and I had this giant box that I had kept from all the things we found on the road and all the things we did on the road and posters and this and that. And in the middle of it was this little card, and it was the backstage pass to Woodstock. And I thought, wow, that's kind of neat. And I looked at it, but it had Nancy's name on it. And I had held on to that somehow all that time. And so I gave it to her and I thought, oh man, this thing must be worth something. and then I thought, gee, why did I give it to her? But I thought, okay, we'll give it to her. And then just this past 2 years ago, we went to the Bethel Woods to speak to people for a few days on opening day and the night before. And I told them this story because it was so bizarre. I started looking through those newspapers to sharpen my mind again about what happened on the weekend that we played at Woodstock, low those many years ago. And when I started searching for those old newspapers that I had given to the lieutenant to look through for 2 weeks during the summer camp, he just handed them back to me. And so I opened them up, and they're perfectly preserved because they'd been in a drawer without sunlight hitting them. And these two cards fall out. And one is the card for the limo that drove me down to JFK, and the other one was my backstage pass. And it's like, wow, I didn't even know it was there all that time. And that was 50 years. Because we were at Woodstock, the museum there, on the 50th anniversary. It's just one of those flukes. And so it was like, my God, this is like a miracle. It's one of those things you can't even believe. And so I thought, okay, now I got my backstage pass, and it's probably worth more than I am. I mean, it's just insane. There were so few handed out, and so few people saved theirs. It's just because we had all that trouble that we were able to save ours. We didn't hang around and party with people like most did. We got out of there because of my situation. So that's that story. I hope I answered your question. Anything else?
That is an extraordinary story, Alex. I mean, just extraordinary.
I know
Wow.
people
Wow.
don't believe it, but it's really what happened. And
Oh,
and
I'm sure it's real. Yeah.
when I was on tour all that time, I'd step out to get a hot dog or something and try to get back into the theater and the whatever it was we were playing. And people didn't believe I was in the band because I had short hair. Even the roadies had hair down to their butts. It was crazy. That the time was like then. And so I had to say, get the manager, get the roadie, get him out here. And I would be standing out there waiting to get back in all the time. To me, it was like a problem. But I got through there. I didn't go to Vietnam like some people I knew did, and I didn't come back in body bag. So I thank God for all of that. For everything.
The irony of it is, that Monday you were going to play in Dallas. I'd actually gone to that rock festival.
Oh yeah.
I hitchhiked with a friend of mine from St. Louis to Dallas to go to that festival.
Oh, that was Texas
Yeah.
Pop Fest, and that was the first big place that Led Zepp played in America.
Yeah. They were live. Yeah. He was playing with his bow, and everything, Jimmy Page and all that. Oh yeah.
It was a good one. I love that one. Actually, all kinds of people were there. I mean, you name it. Janice was there. The airplane was there.
Yep.
And they had Grace Slick and everything. And,
Santana was there. Yeah.
Santana was there. And believe it or not, the people who were attending there kind of booed Led Zepp. They didn't get the high voice, show my naked body thing too much. It was a little weird for them. And obviously everybody got over that in the United States and in Texas too. But that was they wanted to hear blues bands that were, people they'd heard for years, that kind of thing. It was an experience that you couldn't pay for, it just. So you were almost there. That's interesting.
Yeah. My favorite story from that festival was this is, I'd never smoked dope anything, I was just a young kid. And this friend of mine convinced me to go. And I'm standing there literally watching Led Zeppelin. And there's a guy standing next to me. He's got a wooden arm up to about, like about here, So he unscrews his wooden arm, and
And
then
he played in it.
and, and then he's holding it, and then he's got threads and a little hole in the threads, and he's got another hole, about yay in his arm. He puts in a cube of hash in the threads, puffs through the other hole, hands me his arm, and said, "You like a hit, man?"
Oh, oh man,
That
that's perfect.
you can't make this shit up.
No, you can't. Don't
It's my
you?
it's my best back in the day story. Yeah,
Yeah, all that stuff was pretty prevalent. I mean, backstage was ridiculous. You could not be sober, you know,
yeah,
but you made the best of it. The other thing too is I knew that they would test me from then on.
yeah,
I went back to the air base, so I couldn't do anything. I might be able to get away with a little bit of it, but it was just. And then I also realized that it's sort of stupid to get loaded and go out and play
yeah.
because
Right.
you make mistakes. You're going to forget stuff. You're going to whatever. And so that's pretty much when I started formulating getting away from all that crap. So in a way, when the band broke up, it didn't bother me that much. But that's the arm thing that's a oneer, man. You don't
Yeah,
get too many of those, stories like that. But for those days, it's not too bizarre, you know,
yeah, yeah.
not too strange. I I can talk about myself all day because I kind of know the story, you know. But let's move on.
Yeah. Listen to some music.
Absolutely. Let's listen to some music. And also, one of the other things that I wanted to point out here is that your story is very compelling and it makes a whole lot of sense. And even Steven's little brief story, too. And that's what really drives everything. Bob Stain uh, told me many years ago that we're not in the music industry, we're in the entertainment industry. And if you look at the latest issue of Music Connection magazine, Joe Bonamassa is the featured artist, and that's exactly what he says too. He says that we're not in the music business, we're in the entertainment business. And if you're not entertaining and you're just sitting there, wearing a plaid shirt looking at your shoes, nobody gives a crap. And that's absolutely true. It used to be, the shoegaze music thing was cool when people were really stoners and stuff, I guess. But now things are different. And people want to hear those stories. And they want to hear the stories not only from each other, but also in the music.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot of that happen. And that's why I believe that the industry is going back to that, where people are more, um, just far more important than the music itself, but the music has a lot to do with it. That's why AI is never going to take over. And I'm excited about those. I'm
No,
really excited about those
you
things going on.
I applaud you. We kind of got worn out doing that stuff for a few years there, and it just, we were making zip money and putting a lot of time into it and so forth. But you've got more perseverance and you've got a better connection, like the baseball players always do after they hit a homer.
Yeah. Yep. No,
So
I think that the music is a spiritual connection, regardless of what you believe in and where you're at.
yeah,
And so it's going to be good for everybody. It always is good. When you stop chasing the dollar, that's when things really get good, and that's when it becomes far more important. So I'm excited about that.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to go with this. I mean, we could. My favorite subject to talk about now to musicians and songwriters and stuff is this AI crap that's happening. And people are worried about AI taking over humanity and taking over the world and destroying humans. I'm more worried about all the songs sounding the same. If everybody's using the stupid thing to write their songs, it's just a sad day. That's all I can say. If and I will argue with anybody about creativity being something that you really a machine just can't do, no matter what you fill it with. You can take every song, every lyric, every note, every innuendo, every melisma, all this stuff, and it still only belches out what someone put in there at some point. It's like a really big thesaurus and dictionary put together, and including, works that people have created and stuff like that. But to actually create those is a different deal. It's quite different. And I advise songwriters to use it at your peril. That's what
You know, there was a there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil. Have you ever read him or heard about him?
oh,
Well,
yeah,
Ray Kurzweil, when he was like a teenager, now this guy is now the head of R&D at Google. Okay, and he's written books after books. He's the guy who coined the term "the singularity is near" and all that sort of thing. And when he was a teenager, he wrote a program to try to write original music because his father was a conductor. And his comment on that, I'll never forget. He said, "Yeah, it wound up sounding like a student of Mozart, but it was never going to be like Mozart." So he never pursued it. And this guy is genius level. So
he invented.
even early in life, he did that and said, "No, you can't do it. Still away."
Yeah,
And I thought that was a very interesting and inspiring story. Yeah,
actually, he inspired me with just about everything he did. I could
yeah,
never afford a Kurzweil back in the day until they started mass manufacturing them. But then by that time, other people were doing it too. But his comments about living longer, oh,
yes,
this guy is unbelievable. He's saying, if you can live another 15 years, he was on one of those late night TV shows one time saying, if you can live another 15 years, you've got a good shot at gaining another 20 years onto your life. By the time that rolls around, you'll have a much more exponential shot, a larger
yeah,
shot at
very,
with
very true.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought like that, but he did, and he figured it all out.
Well, he wanted to create an avatar of his father by feeding everything about his father into a computer essentially, and then shaking hands and talking with him again because apparently his father died when he was in his 50s. He's pretty young, and that really stuck with him. That's why he's so motivated to do such things. Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
they made
music.
sense to me, and they're making sense now because everything is it's rolling. You know, it's like a cannonball now.
Yeah.
Before it's like a bunch of mules carrying it around.
Yeah. We
Science field is advancing. It's unbelievable.
we are living in exponential times. Yes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to start with the music?
Yeah, let's start the music. Who's up first, Steve?
Let's go in reverse alphabetical this time. We'll bring up Stephen Medeiros first. How about that? So let me do my share screen. And again, hopefully, the
Yeah, I think everybody can unmute and mute themselves. So, Stephen, did you want to say anything about the song?
Yeah. First, Alex, I really enjoyed your story. That was really cool. I'm glad you shared that with us. So this is just a new song. This is just recorded on my phone, actually, a few days ago. So just wanted to see what you thought and what kind of instruments you might put with it if I were to record it.
Okay. So you don't have a band or something, so you're not stuck with a set of
No,
instruments.
I use just studio musicians to record.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to ask you.
go on.
I was going to say, back in the day when we do this, we'd ask what your ambition was for the particular song. Are you a singer-songwriter? Are you an outside writer? Are you just writing to,
I'm a,
come up with something for
I'm
somebody
an
else?
independent singer-songwriter. Yeah.
Okay. And so most of the stuff you write is based on is heading for that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let's hear
Here we
this.
go.
This life of mine is like an ember, burning slow deep in September. Leaves are turning all around me, and winter's coming soon. The doctors say in a matter of time I won't know this home of mine. May not recognize my children or call out to a friend. And when you call my name, if I don't answer and look into my eyes, know that I can see you through this heart of mine. When I can no longer remember that Christmas Day is in December, snowflakes falling all around me, and my time is growing near. Don't be sad that I am leaving. God'll set me free for believing. Remember me when I was whole. It took my mind but not my soul. And when you call my name, if I don't answer, look into my eyes and know that I can see you through this heart of mine, through this heart of mine.
Nice touch. Okay. Right from the beginning, I like the use of the word ember in that whole thing. It's a nice little analogy. Um, it's it's something I feel these days as I'm getting bloody old. And I almost died a couple of years ago. I told Jimmy that recently. I hadn't seen him, and I ended up in the hospital with sepsis, and I thought I had the flu, so I wasn't paying attention to it. So that's why I'm wearing this T-shirt. I don't know if you can see this. I'm not dead yet. Monty Python. That's where it came from. So, but yeah, this all works, and we see the lyrics again. I just run over them a minute.
Okay.
Would that be okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The you're using winter as a metaphor as well, which is nice. And then what got me, where are we now?
This is the second verse. Do you want the first verse back?
I want to go back. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, and the chorus, please. The whole thing about not recognizing your children, not knowing when Christmas is. Geez, you got me. You just floored me there. I can't even imagine. But that's where your power is in this song. I can't really recommend doing a lot of, changing everything. But in terms of uh, the verse and chorus and so forth, it's pretty obvious you could, bump up the chorus so everybody could kind of sing along. But these lyrics are very nice. It's something, that a lot of people will be able to relate to, and I sure do.
Well,
So
thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually wrote this song. I've got some friends that are going through this with their parents, and I'm kind of feeling some of this myself. I mean, obviously, our memories are not as strong, even in our, mid 60s or 70s, whatever, even if, we're not afflicted. But I wanted to write a song that would bring them some comfort about their experience having a loved one, that suffered from this. So that was kind of my objective, my goal in writing it. And it actually came pretty easy once I decided what I wanted to do. Um, it actually came pretty easy. So if I were to record it, what instruments would you put on this particular song?
well, I don't know, guitar and whatever you feel like putting into it. What do you consider this? Is this folk? Is it country? Is it
I'm pretty nondescript. I fall somewhere between folk and country, I think. And depending on what instrumentation I use, that's kind of how the tracks come out.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
I think that's
Americana is what they call it, but it's somewhere in between those. Yeah.
we out here on the West Coast we call it the guys that are pretending to catch that trend, they they call
Yeah.
themselves Americana, but it's actually Amerikinda.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't I don't know. I don't write to genre. I just write, and then I try to think a little bit about genre when I'm selecting the instruments that I'm going to record the song with. That's the only time I think about that.
Well, you might have a little something that tugs at the heart, like a stringed instrument at
Yeah.
some point, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Seriously.
I mean, like violin in the background or
Yeah.
cello or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Which
it's
is what I typically use for this type of song. So cool.
it is a serious song. The other thing is, are you going to be the singer?
Well, if I release it under my artist profile, I would be. But if I wanted to pitch it for another artist, I would probably have another artist, somebody else record the vocal and make it a little stronger than what I'm able to do.
Yeah. So the only little thing that I'm seeing that's bothering me a bit is phrasing the words or even changing some of them slightly like you did. You sort of corrected it at one time um,
Mhm.
to flow more smoothly
Yeah.
because there's nothing worse than if you're playing a serious song like that and it's like hitting a bump. It's like riding a bicycle and you hit a bump or something. And the ride was going really well till you hit that bump, and then you keep thinking about that bump, and is there going to be another one, and that sort of thing. So you know, play around with it and see if you can move some of the things around where they just sing a little more in time with the thing.
Correct. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
use the melody. Um, it's not terrible, but it did catch my attention a couple times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that comes with doing it over and over again. And you
Yeah.
hear it back, it might be late at night one time when you hear it and you say, "Oh, that sounds odd. Why did I do it that way?" And you'll realize
Right. Yeah.
there's ways of finding words that just flow better.
Yeah. Yeah. My vocal style is pretty linear, obviously, and what I usually do is try to work with my vocal coach before I go in, and she helps me with the phrasing. But if I feel like it might be strong enough to pitch to another artist, so I might have it recorded professionally, maybe somewhere in Nashville. So anyway, I appreciate all your comments. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
It's cool stuff.
Yeah. So next, let's have Gia Lev, and the song is "I Thought You Were Mine." Yes. Gia, I tried to bring up the video. I couldn't download it or something. It was a little bit of a problem to try to do that. So,
Yeah, that was the wrong file format. I don't know how to convert that, but
well, it's a video, right?
well, it's an MP4. Yeah, I play it as a music video. I don't know why I was provided with an MP4, but that's what I have. Yeah, I don't know how to.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, this song is a co-write. I did this one in Spain. Alex, I'm part of a songwriting academy. They call it the Songwriting Academy of the UK, and found them during COVID. And they have a faculty of mentors that help you, craft better songs. This was a co-write with one of the mentors, Paul Statham, and another student. And we were in Spain. We go for a week and we craft songs and sing them in the evenings. So this is this is the result of one of those days where we were writing a song. So it's not necessarily the genre, but anyway, I'm moving more toward a Norah Jones sound, and it's a little bit kind of more languid. I'm really more into self-empowerment stuff. So this is going a little different. Anyway, that's the preamble.
Well, good. It informed me.
Can anybody else hear Alex? I can't hear him.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. I was going to say, all of a sudden there wasn't any sound there. I thought, oh my gosh. Okay, so here we go.
When I saw your face, I knew all the answers. I took all the chances. I thought you were mine.
something weird with that.
Yeah, something's chattering.
Oh, it didn't, I mean, it sounded okay from my end, but it didn't come through?
Then the very end started skipping like
Sort
a
of
Oh,
unstable. Yeah, like
Is the
needle.
original sound on, Steve?
yeah, I've got my original sound on.
Okay, then it's probably just bandwidth.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay, well, it's a one. Um, nice recording, I must say.
thank you.
Um, I've got some good news and some bad news for you.
Okay.
Good news is that this really is, it really, I could see this on the radio, particularly in the Nora Jones kind of, somewhere where they'd play her, that sort of thing.
Right.
This makes sense. The bad news is, I think you got the wrong title. Because you end the choruses with Burnin' Blue. It doesn't show up anywhere else in the thing.
No.
It shows up every time at the end of the chorus. And here's the thing about choruses.
Uh-huh.
The reason, some people put the title at the beginning of a chorus, and some people put them at the end. Bob Dylan sometimes did both, and
Right.
that which is a very intuitive kind of thing for people to remember it. But when a phrase, whatever it is, particularly the chorus, when it has been played and you hear all this stuff, and then you stop and there's just music playing in the background and you're waiting for the next thing to come up, you're still ruminating about the last line.
Right. That makes sense.
It's just kind of like a thing that you can't predict, but that was like the payoff. That was the thing that, remains in people's minds. And there's nothing else playing, nothing else singing. There's somebody playing guitar and you're singing Burnin' Blue. Think, wow, this is cool. I would suggest you at least give that a thought. And
Yeah,
maybe,
no, I can do that. We thought the title only because, it was sort of that lyrical motif that just kept coming up. And it seems like, well, that's kind of it, because we keep repeating, I thought you were mine.
well, then in that case, if you're, you have to weigh these things, but the thing is, you might want to get your title in it as the last thing. Again, it's not bad to have it at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
At the top and the bottom.
Yeah, it shows up on the like the first stanza of the first verse and the second stanza in and verse 3 and the second stanza verse 3 to verse 2.
Yeah.
So it shows up 4 times. That's why we thought that. Yeah. I mean, I hear what your point is.
To me, it's not entirely 100% in the wrong place where it shows up, but it's stronger at the end of the chorus. And like I said, you don't hear that phrase anywhere else. It's clever because you're burning up and you're blue at the same time. But
Blue, and it's the hottest part of the flame.
Well, I hadn't quite analyzed it.
Because we said, well, does a flame burn blue? And it was like, well, yes, the blue part, but it's the hottest part of the flame. When you see a flame, it's right in the middle, it's blue.
Maybe.
So you can burn blue, is what I'm saying.
So I think and we might go back to that first thought about just changing the title. That's my thought. If it really bothers you, then don't do it. I mean, how bad can it be? It's sung well. It sounds good. The music's right. Sounds good. It's just one of the things about hit records is a lot of them are simple phrases that show up before a rest or a instrumental period somewhere. They're placed there for a reason. All the old guys in the old days, they used to write in the Brill building and stuff. That was it's kind of a trick. People don't realize you're doing it, but it remains in your head and they're just taking it away. And so you think, burning blue, and it stays with you. Just a thought.
Okay, probably a good thought. Well, I've got a couple of co-writers. I'll talk with them about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a thought. It's a very good song.
Thank you. Yeah.
Put together well, and you know what? Everybody's been in that position in their lives. And so a lot of people can relate to it. It's just everyone has.
Yeah. It's
No.
pretty universal, right?
Or you may add a little the middle eight, like the Beatles used to say, add a little bit of a something, be it a bridge or whatever, and get in the lyrics you want to get in there where they're not, where you have the other title. It just
You mean with Burning Blue, put a bridge in? I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
yeah, well, it's your call.
Yeah. To put an add a bridge. Yeah, I certainly would have to pare it back. I don't want to go any longer than what it is, but
Yeah, it's
yeah, because we do the chorus going out twice.
which is another thing people do. That's why all that disco stuff repeated things 600 times when you hear
Right?
them, because
Crazy.
the time you've heard it, you wanted that record. You thought, wow, and it's etched in your head, in your gray matter. The title's in there. You can spell it. You can see it. It's pure business.
I have to be okay with repetition because I want to tell a story, but really I hear, the simplicity of songs sometimes with repetition, they're more catchy. They just are.
Yes, they are. And a lot of them are catchy for about a week or two, but that's all it takes. You're vomiting the next time you hear them. But for the great unwashed world, those things are, they call people's attention to you. This is why people from like Madonna to everybody, they always did things to attract people's attention, whether it had anything to do with the music or not. And that's the entertainment thing you guys were talking about a while ago. It isn't just singing a song and allowing the song to move you.
Mm-hmm.
You have that visual along with it and all that stuff. So yeah, so you got it all working. It's just the amounts of each. It's kind of like a Chinese puzzle. You have a square with a bunch of little cubes to move around in it, and there's always going to be an empty spot someplace. And you move the cubes to where the most advantage spot would be, to the most the one that just comes out and goes and hits you, and you go, oh wow, that's nice, I want to hear that again. And people want to hear it again so they can feel the emotion it had with them. It gets inside of you, and you said to yourself, wow, that's great, and you really feel it. You don't know why. Some people don't analyze it like we do, but that's pretty much what it is. It's just you want to move people emotionally with whatever the thing is. Every girl's been in that position, and to be a spoiler here, every guy's been in that position too. We all thought we had someone that really cared for us at one time or another, even if it wasn't junior high, but it sticks with you your whole life, and some of these things don't work out, but boy, do heartbreaks make good songs,
Taylor Swift.
Make good songs, so stick with it.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
No problem.
Okay, so next we'll have Ed Lackey and then Tom. And
yes, please.
And what happened to Ed? Is he still here?
What's that?
Oh, Ed's not here. Ed Lackey. I thought he was here earlier.
Sounds like a Cheech and Chong routine.
Okay. Okay, Tom, we'll play yours then. And maybe Ed's a little later or something. And then we have one from Emmanuel Lawrence too. And I'm not sure why he's not here, if he didn't get a link or something or what. But anyway, we'll play Tom's. Let me bring that up.
Hi guys, thank you. Thanks so much.
Sure. And this is, I tried to download, let me see. I do it from here. me see if I can get the lyrics up. Give me a moment here. Somebody's cutting out a lot there. I don't know who that is, but let's see. Okay, so
If
there's
everybody
the
could mute
lyrics.
real quick, that'll help.
Yeah, there's the lyrics, but I don't know if I can play the song in the. Let's see. Now, how do I? Okay, give me a minute. I thought this would download, but it's not downloading. It's give me a minute. Okay. There it is. Then, if I can, see, moving a script. Okay, I'm just going to play the damn song because apparently, even though I downloaded it, let me see.
So you won't have lyrics up on the screen?
Yeah, but I don't want to open it with Google is the point, because then I can't open the other one, the other song with Google and have you see the lyrics at the same time. Give me a moment here. Open with. Okay, there we go.
Do you have them printed?
Well, no, well, I have the file. Yeah. So
Alex,
now I can do it. Okay, give me a moment.
Alex, I can put them up on the screen.
Stephen?
Yeah, that's okay. I can do it now. I mean, I've got it up on the screen. Yeah.
You got a diamond on your hand, and you were waiting there. Neither one of us is free. Everything we used to be is history. So please don't say it. Don't say the words that I so long to hear. Please don't say it. Those words were meant for someone else's ears. Don't look at me with those eyes. That same look that used to mesmerize me. You know I always loved your lips, and it's making me want to kiss you. But we can't do this, please. Don't say it, don't say the words that I so long to hear. Please don't say it, those words were meant for someone else's ears. Please don't Don't say it. Please.
Nice.
Okay. That is a very well written pop song. Are we up yet? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't see anybody. Oh yeah. Okay. Now people are popping up. Are you outside? Okay.
Outside.
So yeah. Okay, I'm good. Now here's a situation where there's one part of this thing before you went into the instrumental. There was a please or something that wasn't don't say it. But it was I wanted to hear that repeated. It was done once and then it wasn't repeated. You know where I'm talking about? Tom? Hello?
After the bridge?
I
Is it
guess,
after the bridge?
yeah. I'm trying to picture the lyrics now. But that thing, you harmonized on the word please, and then you wanted to get the title in there. So it's one of those quandaries that I was speaking about with her about, which one do you sacrifice? Which is kind of interesting because it's kind of the quandary you're having in the lyrics of the song. You know, love with someone, someone's in love with you, but you're going to break other people's hearts. It's a very common thing that comes up with people, but most people don't sing about it. So it's kind of interesting. It's pretty brave, and you've done a great job of putting the whole thing together.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little bit about temptation.
It's a lot about temptation, but and everybody's been there. Anybody that says they were able to resist temptation like that is full of crap. People, it happens all the time. That's why I think a lot of people can relate to something like that. Other than that, I can't find anything wrong with the lyrics. I can't find anything wrong with the music. It's it grabs you right away, and then you roll with it.
Well, that makes me happy, Alex, because I spent a whole lot of money recording it. It's kind of too late to do any changes at this point.
What does Jimmy think?
Well, honestly, I remember the song when you first wrote it, and I really liked the original arrangement a little better. But yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds bigger and more polished, but because it is bigger and more polished, it kind of loses that intimacy of what the lyrics all about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's like hearing something live as opposed to something that's produced. So you may want to take that into consideration. And
Jimmy, you may be talking about the original demo, which was just piano, and we had two demo singers.
Yep.
Record the vocals. It was very stripped down. Yeah, just piano vocal.
Yeah, but some songs just work better that way. Yeah, because the lyric is so powerful that it transcends, the arrangement. So.
And after all, it's two people speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The lyrics.
Very good point.
And maybe that's he's got the beat on this one, maybe, So it might be just a matter of balancing the vocals in certain places and taking the background down or something, a little bit. and then coming up, punch it in for the end, and you
Yeah, I think,
of repetition in there. I mean, if someone hears a song once and doesn't know that's the title, there's something wrong, because you've given them ample opportunity to hear the title. And it
yeah,
always, and the end is I love the end. The lyric line on the last thing, it kind of like, it's like sums up the idea behind the whole thing. So
right.
anyway,
Yeah, I think Jimmy, I was in the studio with my producer, and it's Ted Wolfers who
Yeah.
plays 1,000 instruments, and I thought, well, in my little bit of my mad scientist mind, hey, while we're at it, oh wow, you've got a cello. Oh, let's put that on. Oh, you play pedal steel. How about we try some pedal steel? So I had all these wonderful options to choose from. In fact, at the very beginning of the song, you might have heard this kind of sound, and that was a singing bowl
oh,
that
yeah.
a friend of mine record. I was at her house for dinner, and she played the singing bowl. Oh, let me record that on my iPhone, and it's just a voice memo that we popped in there, and it happened to be the right key, the right note, But yeah, I take your point, Jimmy, and there's maybe a little too much production on it.
Yeah, the singing bowl to me takes me out of it, not into it. It doesn't seem to me like it's connected. That's just me.
Yeah,
But
it's just right there in the beginning. It's before anything else starts.
it was so loud at first that I started to take my headphones off, and then somebody corrected it. But that's a pretty interesting thing. It has some similarities to her song, to Gia's song.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Two people interlocked. It's like, when, I've got friends who write comedy very successfully, who are my neighbors, and they've written all these things you see on TV, Two and a Half Men and Big Bang Theory and all this kind of stuff. And the whole thing, you start off as a premise with creating a series that's going to last forever, is a lock, Lock. It's people that really wouldn't get along necessarily, who are locked into this situation, just like like they did with I Love Lucy back in the day. There are people that really probably wouldn't be together, like her and her husband, or them and their neighbors, but they're locked.
Odd couple, yeah.
Building. And
Right.
that is a very compelling thing for people to find in a story, that people are looking for a way in this story to work it out, even though they've got the push-pull thing going big time in all directions. They don't want to disappoint their own feelings or their lovers' feelings, or they don't want to cause a calamity in both their
Right.
home. It's
Incidentally, I've already released the song as a male solo vocal. It's already on Spotify and iTunes, etc. But I have not released the duet version. And I was at a music conference. I played it for a publisher, and she said, I think duets are not really in style right now. I thought, well, I don't know. That's one opinion.
This is
What about shallow?
Yes, thank you.
Well, we had a cello full time in our band, and it was not popular in rock and roll, but we had it because we wanted to be different. Every band has one guitar, two guitars, three guitars, or four guitars, and a bass guitar. That's how it is. And
Exactly.
We didn't want to have a guitar, and we got attention that way.
Exactly. Well, thank you for your comments, Alex, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
We should move to Ed's on the next one, Ed Lackey. And so this is called here it is. Hot as Ice. Oops, hold on. Gotta share my screen first.
Oh, it's popping up now.
Let's see. Okay.
Hot as ice, cold as fire. If I denied it, I would be a liar. Hot as ice, cold as fire. I know our love couldn't get much higher. I can't stop, I'm thinking about you. I do it all the time. All the time. I can't stop, I'm thinking about you. You're always on my mind. And when I dream of you. Oh, what else can I do? I just can't seem to help myself. I'm so in love with you. Hot as ice, cold as fire. If I denied it, I would be a liar. Hot as ice, cold as fire. I know our love couldn't get much higher. The way we kiss, the way we hold, it's just not in my mind. In my mind. The look that's in your eyes, I've seen it several times. The way we walk, the way we touch, the little things we do. You're always just out of reach, and I am reaching out for you. Hot as ice, cold as fire. If I denied it, I would be a liar. Hot as ice, cold as fire. I know our love couldn't get much higher. Hot as ice, cold as fire. If I denied it, I would be a liar. Hot as ice, cold as fire. I know our love couldn't get much higher. Hot as ice, cold as fire. If I denied it, I would be a liar. Hot as ice, cold as fire. I know our love couldn't get much higher. Hot as ice.
I think that just keeps on going, yeah.
Well, but I kept wanting to hear it.
Oh,
Pretty catchy. That's okay. I know what it sounds like. That's an interesting concept. So I applaud you for doing something a little different. It's once it starts going, you don't want to let it go. It's one of those songs that just kind of grabs you musically. You don't really care what they're singing about, but it makes sense. It's different. It's just different enough to be a good pop song. And yeah, there's some things that crisscross, you hear some of these things in other songs, but it's not to the point where it distracts you. I like it. But then I'm always a sucker for things in minor. And I like it a lot. I mean, it's funny that the first thing I started thinking about was it's got a little bit of Rhiannon in it. I don't know if anybody else has mentioned that to you, But when you first heard Fleetwood Mac's Rhiannon, it was kind of like that, the same chords basically. And then they had a hit with it. And that was their first thing as a new group with Mick Fleetwood and the, what's his name and what's her name. So then they went and they did 50 songs just like it in some different tempos and this and that. And it was like, damn, couldn't they have, come up with something else? That's why I enjoyed hearing the guitar player do his stuff without Stevie Nicks' influence so much. This is nothing personal. I'm going off on a jag here, sorry. But it's a very catchy, very, very catchy pop song. For the most part, I like the lyrics. It's sort of confusing at first, but once you realize what you're saying, then it's cool because it's unique. And I don't know, there's not much more I can say about it. I like it. I'd want to hear it again. It's a fun song,
Thank you.
I'm sure people can relate to it. People who've been in a situation with someone and it's just, they don't have any other way to describe it. So there's some interesting stuff popping up tonight, I must say. I enjoyed it. What are you looking for in feedback here?
Just basically what you said.
Oh, well, okay. Jimmy, do you want to say something here?
I was just wondering why you put the bells in there.
Just something a little different.
Okay. Yeah, because for myself, if I was producing that, I would look at sounds that sound like Fire and Ice a little bit more. Like hitting the bell on a cymbal sometimes gives you a little bit colder sort of a bell tone. And it's not necessarily tuned, but it gives you that feeling of something that's a little bit cold. And if you're hitting that bell on a ride cymbal with some of those rivets in it, then it also sizzles a little bit. So it's that combination of Fire and Ice hitting that bell on a ride cymbal that gives you more of that kind of a feeling. And I think that might have worked pretty good. And then
Thank
also,
you.
yeah,
that's a good one.
yeah,
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, that's kind of neat. You remember that when you first heard Beach Boy songs, you heard jingle bells.
yeah.
Brian would use sleigh bells in songs that had nothing to do with Christmas or anything, but had to do with a beach and all that, Yet people heard it. They didn't analyze it and go, what are those things doing in there? They just, it tickled their fancy. They liked it and they went along with it, You never know. Sometimes it's a little something that a little out of the ordinary that people say, I don't know, I just like this song. There's something that gets me about it. I can't explain it. And that is what most people do. They don't analyze stuff like we do. We're out of our minds doing this, but we like to do it. Jimmy and I do this, in our sleep if we had to, because we like it. It's fun to us. But most your audience out there, the people that would buy something like this, it might just catch them and they'll be rocking with it and they won't know why. It's that's how this stuff works. A lot of times you can't predict what will happen. You'll write 12 songs, you'll put out your own album, and the one you think is going to be the hit turns out to be the dud. And the one you thought you just kind of threw in at the last minute because you thought, this is kind of, there's something about it I like, and I'm just going to put it in. So it's the 12th one you added to the album. And then that becomes a hit. And it was the last one you ever thought would be a hit. And because you've heard these things before. That's what's so hard about writers having to be their own judge. And it's helpful to have other people give you opinions. This is something that we didn't know when we were younger. We just wrote stuff and we used lyrics that sometimes fit and sometimes didn't fit, and sometimes evoked certain things and didn't. And they kind of did to us because we were so close to it. And that's the problem. When you're a writer, and you're close to what you're writing, you cannot see the flaws. As I've said before, songs are like babies, and it's kind of weird to say when you're doing you know, a collaboration with someone. It's like having a baby together, and people love their own babies. I've seen people that had babies that were uglier than the backside of a dog, and they love them because of their babies. And it's hard for them to be objective about it. That's why you really have to have some outside opinion, something that comes in and says, yeah, I like this, but wow, that one, when you hesitated for a moment, it threw the whole thing off for me. And it's like, you would have never thought, but somebody thought that was a beautiful thing to do, to hesitate. Sometimes it works. Sometimes hesitating makes something more important. It makes people listen to, like, what did he say there? And he did. But there's a lot of things like that. You might find somebody who just used to play bells when he was a kid, like they do in church. They have bell choirs, only bells, and they're just gorgeous when you hear them, and everybody's playing together. But they wouldn't think back to church. They just hear it and they love it for some reason. Might be because they heard it in church years ago. Who knows? So get a lot of opinions. Get as many opinions as you can.
And one of the other things too is that in this day and age, we're able to record our own stuff, and we can change things around quite a bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been bringing up for a lot of people more recently is Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride by the Beatles is, up and catchy. But if you look at the lyrics, they're pretty dark. And so then if you hear Karen Carpenter's version, it'll make you cry. It's like, wow, it's the same song, but it's totally different. Yeah. And so I was thinking about that, and I was looking at the Monkey song, Last Train to Clarksville.
Yeah.
And I did exactly the same thing. I took that song and I turned it into, a sad ballad thing, and I recorded it. So it's on my YouTube page now. And yeah, it's totally different. It was, wow, I don't remember that song that way. And it's like, no, because it's different.
Yeah,
so
the title
your own
would
songs, yeah.
A sad song really well. It's a great title. It could be the name of a movie, And in fact, that what they were doing at the time were trying to sound like the Beatles, because they were preparing to do a TV show based on A Hard Day's Night. And that's basically what they did. They pretty much copied the Beatles, and everybody thought they were phony, except for the young kids that loved them to death. And then some of us liked the songs. And so we got to be Monkees fans, who knew, but hey, anything is possible, you have to try it out and see who, the old, raise it up the flag and see who salutes kind of thing, the more people that hear it, the more chances that people will begin to like it. Even if, you like, sometimes, I'm used to this stuff, and Jimmy's used to this stuff. We've done this for a long time and been in classes where you learn how to dissect music to the point where you can, make it better. And we still fall for stuff. We'll get up in the morning, we're rushing off someplace, and there's this song in our head, and we're just singing. We can't get rid of it. And then we scream in horror when we realize it's an advertisement. It's a song that somebody made for Robitussin or some damn thing. And it's like, why am I singing this thing? But it's an earworm. It's a live thing in your brain, and sometimes somebody just did something right. And the other thing is, the reason commercials work is because they repeat them all the time. You watch some of these old movies on TV, particularly late at night, where they can advertise 12 products in every break. And you'll hear that same song because they'll advertise that same product during about 8 or 9 or 10 breaks during this long movie. And it's just repetition. Gets into your brain. You hate it. You hate it because it's interrupting your stupid movie, but it gets in there anyway. And, particularly while you're sleeping or you wake up and you have this thing in your head, you've got no control over it because you don't know what it is yet. It's It's insidious, actually, but that's the way life works.
We
Repetition.
got two more. So let's listen to Emmanuel's, I guess, and let me see if he actually made it on yet or not. I'm not quite sure why he didn't make it because he usually makes it. But anyway, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and the lyrics are here. This one he sent to me as a link, and let's see if it works. Let me do the share screen.
Hey.
I've seen his eyes, I've seen his lips, I've seen his size and rugged hips. I've seen his smile, heard his laughter, and felt his mechanical moves right after. Now, what makes this man so special to me? Why I understand, how do I believe? Looking past the pipe, past the plane, past the sprocket, I'm looking for understanding of it. Ooh, rocket. Ooh, rocket. There's math, physics, astronomy, calculus, science, space, astrology. There's new important learning, but nothing he's keeping from me. I'm a flame and burning love women can see. Now, what makes this man? What makes this man so special to understand? I believe past the plane, past the rocket. I'm looking for understanding. No rocket. It's me and him, not him and her. For those two, no, they won't occur. I made the plan, I made it work. Yes, we are two, I want his word. Yes, I want his word. Now, what makes this man? What makes this man so special to me? So special to me? I understand. I'm looking past the pipe, looking past the pipe, past the sprocket.
Is Emmanuel with us?
He's not with us, but like I say, he's a regular, and so I, wanted to. He
He
sent it
might be on
in.
YouTube. There are 4 people on YouTube right now.
Know him
Oh, okay, he could be on. Yeah, right.
from LA, and I've actually worked with him.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's got this voice that most people would kill for, you know.
Yes, yes.
I wish I could say the same for the understanding what this lyric means. Anybody there with me or what?
Well,
Well, it obviously means something to him, but he's having trouble understanding what he sees in this guy, or I don't really understand it.
well, at the very top, I don't know if you caught it. It's supposed to be sung by a woman, not him, not a man.
Oh, no, I didn't catch it. But
Yeah, that was at the very top of the lyrics. Yeah,
Oh.
to be sung by a female vocalist or something like that.
okay. Yeah, it was flapping around here. Okay, my bad. Yeah, I could see a woman singing this very much. I don't know. You'd have to find one. You have to find another Aretha or something to sing like him. But it's you know, it's interesting. So now I have to think about the whole thing again. This is basically somebody who's admiring someone who's having a little bit of trouble putting him together herself. But is that correct? Or do we have to look at the lyrics again?
It's probably about right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then it makes sense. At first, I thought there was I'm sorry, my bad. I thought it was going to be, a guy that was jealous of another guy, and he was describing the guy and didn't see what his girlfriend found in him. But okay, yeah, it's his female singer there. Got it. I started to read the lyrics right away. Okay. Yeah, so let's just go through it again real slowly here, or a little bit quicker. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, now it all makes sense. Okay, one other thing. Did anybody get the pipe and the sprocket and all that thing? I hope the pipe's not what I think he meant.
I think sprocket just rhymed with rocket, but
you may be right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be that simple.
For myself, I thought maybe he's building a bicycle, or maybe they're in love with a bicycle. I don't know.
I thought it was a whole lot more sexual than that.
Well, I don't know, because rocket is something that you might want to be riding real fast, and sprocket, okay, plane, well, maybe, and a pipe, well, yeah, you build a bike out of tubes, so maybe it kind of makes.
You're really
sense.
stretching, Jimmy.
I know I'm stretching. I'm trying real hard.
Already getting too dirty for me. I'm gonna have to pull my pants up and leave. So.
I mean, with Emmanuel, though, this is a classic case of somebody having a voice so good they could literally sing the phone book, and you'd be wow,
Yeah.
This is
So that's the whole thing.
Until they have to pronounce my name in the phone book, so that's where it all goes to hell. But yeah, I've always liked everything he did. Some of the stuff is just, I get the same feeling you get, Jimmy. That he just and Stephen was saying that he's got one of those voices that you can't deny that he's got a point, whatever the point is. It just sounds so good that it's like, oh wow, that must be the truth. This is, by the way, why people like rhymes in songs, because rhymes sound like the truth to people. Once you begin a rhyme and then you chime it with something that sounds quite like it, it sounds real. It sounds like the truth. You don't know why, but it's the rhyme. And it's part of a story, and you say, oh wow, this story must be true because there's that thing, and it's chiming in your head. It's just like the thing. And that's one of those deals. It's one of those tricks that they play in the studio, or they play, people come up with something that rhymes, doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's a lot of people doing that these days too.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy named Chuck Cannon who was a songwriter, went to one of those Durango songwriter conferences, and he'd done an analysis of all these number one country songs. And he claimed that something like 70 or 80% of them had hard rhymes, not soft rhymes, but hard rhymes. And that was an interesting statistic, I thought. But it backs up what you're saying, that, that rhyming is important.
Well,
and in fact, from his point of view, it was like force yourself to struggle to get a good one, not to settle for something that's kind of halfway.
Yeah. Well, in the old days, when people used to make a living just writing, like in the Brill Building and stuff, there was hundreds of people in there, males, females, writing full time. And that was the law. It had to rhyme, had to be a perfect rhyme every time, mainly because Broadway wanted a perfect rhyme so that people would get it. They wouldn't mistake it. And when it came on the radio, it was a little more, you hear it more often and this and that. But that's changed a lot. And like the reason I actually began to like rap and hip hop, because people literally they broke that rule a lot. Not that the Beatles didn't and stuff, but they just came close, and that was expanding it and making it okay. It's more like a conversation, than a thing that's set up to chime every time, and it's bizarre how tastes change, and of course, the whole Brill Building concept of writers writing all the time is kind of gone. And imagine being somebody like name some guy that became a hit after being a writer. I know where you're going to go.
Barry. We talking commercial? Barry Manilow.
That's one. There's quite a few of them, and when they found their own thing, it was much more interesting. It wasn't confined by repetition and all this stuff that they say you have to have for a hit song. And so music grew up a bit, but all this is pretty fascinating when you put it all together. And I haven't talked about some of these subjects for a while. Just hearing them pop up is like, that's I remember that. But the world is a different place. And this is why, I picture the Brill Building, all these great people that were in there writing things. And this is why I hate the idea, the whole concept of AI, because it can't do what people do, and it won't. Everything's going to become a lot the same. And I'm sure AI can even critique itself, but it's doing it. They'll say, well, this sounds a little bit too much like that. They'll find another rhyme in a billionth of a second. They'll just bam, okay, here it is. But it's not. I don't look at that as creativity. It's like somebody that works in a library trying to match a sentence out of one story with a sentence out of another story and put the two together and writing a story about it. It's just, I'm not a fan of it. It'll have to prove itself. I mean, and recently, a little side thing, I'm going to spend 1 minute on it. I had to buy a new TV because my old one croaked. And don't you know, no one repairs TVs anymore. They throw them away like razors, And so I went and bought a TV and I took it home, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. And I used to fix TVs because my dad fixed TVs for a living. And I couldn't figure out what was going on in this. So I just gave up, and I thought, I wonder if I can use my old remote, because I can do that with my eyes closed. And so it didn't work. I couldn't get it to work. And then I thought, but they must have a thing for this to work, some facility within the thing that allows you to override it with your remote. It would be so simple. Wouldn't most people want that? Yes, they would. So I called up Samsung. Oh my God. They started off by saying charges may apply. And I started, oh yeah. And then it went to text. It wasn't talking with someone, it was text. And right away I thought, I'm talking to a damn robot here, because it kept stalling and repeating things. And it was slower than molasses. It was like going backward. And then at some point they said, okay, I understand your problem. I'm going to put you online with a human. It actually said that. And then I thought, oh, so it was AI. And then they put me on with somebody with a different name. The first guy's name was Christian. The second one was a woman's name. But that was a robot too. I could tell because they were doing the same crap. I thought we're all being, taken for a ride here. And after an hour and a half talking to them, I finally got an answer. And it was simple as pie, but they kept me on the line. They could have answered it in 5 seconds because they knew what I was asking. So I've already had a really bad experience with a thinking machine or whatever that,
Okay, let's do the last one. So this is mine. It's called "Want to Be Loved."
Yeah, the lyrics.
Yeah, it's up. I just have to start this first, and then I'll get the lyrics up.
Because we want to be loved. We do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. We do it because we want to be loved. Looking down at your phone. Are you gonna make that call? 'Cause she hit you like a bolt of lightning. Are you gonna risk that fall? Do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. We do it because we want to be loved. We do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. We do it because we want to be loved. Are you gonna get on that stage? Are you gonna say that line? 'Cause that applause was the bolt of lightning that caused your soul to shine. Do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. We do it because we want to be loved. Do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. We do it because we want to be loved. Stepping out on that tightrope, swaying left and right. Keep your eyes
Straight ahead.
and soon you'll see the light. Do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. Do it because we want to be loved. Do it because we want to be loved. We do what we do. We do it because we want to be loved.
Okay. Can you leave the lyrics up?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Okay. I'll ask you. I remember most of you started off uh, and you say we do it because we we do what we do what we do. Is that what you wanted to be up there? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Um, this is pretty interesting. I thought of something that you might do, unless you're already committed to not changing this thing, but you're obviously playing it because you're looking for appreciation. You want to be loved. um, it's at first I thought there was not enough syllables in that line, in the middle line, and I thought, what if you sang, "We do what we need to," like what we need to, because that's kind of how it was being sung, because you split that what we do, and it needing is always more overpowering than we want to, like you say in the first line.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. So you could throw that in, it wouldn't change much of anything, but solidify the thing, the point, the whole point of this thing. It's very catchy, and you might also call this thing "We Want to Be Loved." It'd be clearer. Yes, it's a little longer, but you know,
Okay.
I'm sure you went through this and said, "I want to be loved," and "We want to be loved," and you're speaking for everyone. And that's, if it were I do it because I want to be loved. I do what we do, what I need to. We do it because I want to be loved. I'm sure you could work that out. And a lot of people hear something like that and they'll relate to it rather than somebody singing for everybody. In other words, you're like a psychiatrist telling everybody that that's why we do things. And sometimes people like it, sometimes they don't. But if it hits them in the heart, like it could, the bolt of lightning you're talking about and all that, then that's then it reinforces the message. This thing is very catchy melodically. It sounds like something that you'd say, hey, this is a hit song, just by the melody. You almost don't you don't have to have all the lyrics in there, but you want both of them to be there at the same time, sticking with them. And if you're singing, if you use I instead of we, then it's more personal. And like people walk around singing songs to themselves, and they're singing about I, and other people hear it on the radio and it's singing about I, and you sing it in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. You sing along with them, and you're singing about I. It's what you feel. This is why all these stupid things out there are my this, my that, my pillow, my get over it, But that's what people do. It's about what you feel. Do I make any sense here, or am I stepping out on across?
Well, I've had this comment and discussion before on a different song, actually. I remember where it was you instead of we, and then I wound up changing it to I, but then I kind of regretted it, to be honest with you. But it's an interesting. You're not the first person to bring up such a thing. I guess my point is that you know the perspective. I, to me, always sounded too self-centered, I guess, as the reason I kind of avoid that. But it's a matter of opinion, you know. Like you said, if it's I and the person singing it themselves, then they can relate to it better, perhaps. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Still works.
Yeah, it could work either way. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you know, speaking of hit songs and speaking of the Beatles,
Yeah,
one day I was shopping with my wife, and we were walking around in this store. It was an art store for stuff that she was doing, and they played one Beatles song after another,
yeah.
and it dawned on me that they're all hits, every single one of them. And they went on, and the guy, it was a channel, a radio channel, and the guy comes on and says, "And don't forget to tune in tomorrow when we're doing all Beatles from M to Z." And I thought, he's been playing Beatles songs this whole time, and they're all different, and they're all great songs. And you listen to some of their songs, and you know, I want to do a girl with a thing like you know, and it's like they just start off with I, me, you. It's putting people in that song. It's just, you know what I mean? It worked then, it still works now, but it's not quite so obvious. But a lot of their earlier songs are like that.
Okay.
All 200 of them, and they were all hits. You know, I mean, just saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
I wish I would have written one of them. You know,
Yeah. Right.
I'm sitting in this diamond-shaped room here talking to you guys. But I still love to do this, and it's cool. But consider it, and even though it somehow it didn't work on your other song, it may work here. When
Okay. Yeah.
people sing it to themselves, they relate to it. When they can sing it to themselves.
Yeah.
When they're singing we, it gets, you know, like it's like a
Preachy, you mean?
no, not necessarily. Well, it's like you know the answer and you are telling them. Yeah, it's a little preachy, but it's,
Okay.
it's also like YMCA or something. You know, hey, we're all in this together, and you know,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
a we thing. It's you're really singing about being in love with one person, not everybody.
Mhm.
So it's actually kind of a singular, a thought, singular, a feeling. You know,
Gotcha. Yeah.
that's this. All these things are about feeling. If you can move somebody in a particular way, if you know, make their heart emote, you know, they will, you know, they will move along with you and they will relate to that song and go, man, that's how I feel. And it happens to boys, girls, women, men, old people, even me. You know, once in a while I hear something that just kicks my ass, and it's something that's sentimental, and I think, oh, I'm not really like that. I'm a guy. You know, this I don't really like music like this, but I'm singing along with it. I love it. You know, and then I think to myself, I wish I would have written this. You know, I mean that's the ultimate compliment, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Because it moved me. That's the whole thing. It gets inside of you and
It moves you.
moves you, be it lyrics or melody or both, or arrangement, you know, the beat, whatever it is that moves you, you know. Good song though.
Thank you, Alex.
You know, everybody
All right.
had pretty damn good songs today. A lot of times you go to, you know, one of these things and about, you know, half of them are duds, and you know, you're eating your tongue to try to keep from saying anything bad about it. But if there was something that's really bad, I would probably say it. And particularly about guys who are out of state, because I know they're not going to come over here and beat my evening from saying something. But seriously, you know, everybody has these feelings in them. It's a matter of getting them out to where they reach inside of somebody else and, you know, move them. That's
Yeah.
the only word I can think of, you know, that kind of makes sense. And whatever the song's about, if it moves you and you do your job right, it'll move somebody else. And if you move enough of them, you can, you know, you might retire like the Beatles, maybe. Any other thoughts, Jimmy?
I think you pretty much said everything right that should be said, and it's good stuff. Thank you once again for coming, and I owe you lunch or breakfast or something sometime soon. We'll get together on that.
Well, we do that once in a while anyway.
Yeah, well, we need to do that. I mean, I missed those times when we did do that a couple times. But yeah, we'll
Glad you're
definitely.
back, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, yeah, thank you once again for being here, and hopefully we'll be able to catch you around town. A lot of good things are happening around town. Unfortunately, one of the things that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's a historical thing. The Coffee Gallery is having their final garage sale sort of a thing on Saturday. So from noon to 4, you can buy something that was at the Coffee Gallery if you have a memory there that I do.
Yeah, we all do. Is Bob Stain going to still run that thing?
It's gone.
It's gone. So
It's
what?
gone.
So who is in charge of all this then? They're going to
I don't know who's
tear
going to
it
be
down.
pulling the stuff. Bob will probably be there, but even then, I don't know because I don't know how his health is.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, okay. I wouldn't mind talking to him again after all this time.
Oh, we all want to talk to him for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to get the woman Diana March from Jewel Universe over there because she really respected that whole place and she was hoping to model her venue after the Coffee Gallery. So
It's pretty
if she-
special.
yeah, if she can get that stuff and put it in there, that'll be awesome. We'll
I,
see what
I
happens.
just wondered if they're going to tear down the building. I
I've
mean, there's
heard
like a
rumors
barber
of
shop
that.
there and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard rumors of that. So we'll see what happens because it is a very old building and it's, there's just no way it could be upgraded to spec or code anymore because it's not quite a historical building and there's no handicap
Not quite.
access. So
But you and I know what the real reason is. Somebody wants to make money. There will be a building
Always.
taller than that. That's what they do in LA. For you guys that are not from LA, I mean, holy God, they're taking every 1-story and 2-story building in LA and making them 20-story buildings now. It's insane. There's already enough people here. The roads are already molasses. It's ridiculous. And they're doing it. They're even along between LA and Chinatown, they're building a 59-story building. And you look into that, you realize, oh, they didn't want to go through the machinations of having a 60-story building, because it's probably another protocol that they have to go through, building everything. But they crammed everything they could into this building. I mean, they're just going nuts. These used to be, all these buildings along Sunset Boulevard used to be single family dwellings. A family lived there, maybe at the most 8 people, and now they're taking these properties and they're turning it into New York. They're all going, and it's just completely,
and multi-use too. The multi-use thing is what's really crazy.
of course, they're squeezing every penny out of it. That's what it is.
Well,
right?
just up the street from where you're at, I don't know if you saw on the corner of Silver Lake and what's that street now? Silver Lake in London, I think it is, or somewhere around there. There's a Target store there. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, it's a little one.
Brand new Target store, but it's apartments on top.
Yeah.
So you would never realize that it's a Target store except for that big, round logo there. It's like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, but that's just one example. There's like 50.
Yeah.
And they just want more and more people in the same size area. They're not making the area any bigger. And what happens, everybody's going to be filling up the streets, cars, motorcycles, skateboards, whatever. And they all have to come and go from work and shopping and stuff, and it's turning it, when you used to see Seinfeld, they lived in the building and they'd go downstairs to the restaurant, right? Am I wrong there? Or I think it's in the same building.
Yep, supposedly.
This is kind of the mode here. That's where they're going.
Manhattanization of LA, huh?
Yeah. It's somebody's making money. You know, real estate always makes money, but when they make it a multi-use thing,
Mhm.
all sorts of different things can happen in this building. They're just maximizing their money, but they're maximizing the traffic and the people and the congestion and probably the crime, because that's what happens. You know, busy areas have crime. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
Where
Yeah,
whereabouts
because
are you talking about, Alex? Is this in like downtown LA or where? I'm in Santa Barbara.
Well, Santa Barbara. Oh, you're in Santa Barbara. Yeah.
Right.
Nice
Yeah.
place to be.
Yeah.
I live in Silver Lake, and
Okay, down there. Right. Okay.
I'm fortunate to have grown up there, Echo Park and Silver Lake. And then, you know, I was on the road for a long time. I was in a service for a while, and then I was on a road again. And then I was in Vegas for about 5 years playing music. And then I lived in Laurel Canyon for a short bit of time. But when I wanted to settle down, I went back to my neighborhood and I liked it. And my girlfriend and I lived in a place that we paid $105 a month for a very comfortable one half of a duplex.
Time ago.
Yes.
Going back
landlord.
decades.
The landlord was a, you know, just a regular guy who had one arm, and he continued to repair everything at the place. Like when there was a leak, he'd go up on the roof, and I'd say, you know, I'd always go out and say, well, isn't that kind of dangerous for you? And he said, no. I'd say, well, can I give you a hand? Then I go, oh shit, I shouldn't have said, you know, time. But he would go up there and he'd goof around on the roof. And then the next time it rained, it didn't leak in that room, but it leaked in another room. And so it was just constant. We thought, oh, we better start saving some money to buy a house because we've got no control here, you know? And for God's sake, we looked at like 60 or 65 different places. And the one we found was really cheap. This was in 78. And this is another one of those stories that people can't believe. Both my wife and I grew up around a lot of different kinds of people. And she grew up in South LA. She had a lot of black kids in school with her. She had a lot of Mexican kids with her. And so we were used to all of that stuff. And so the broker, this lady, was showing us the property. And so I went up on the roof just to see if I could see what it looked like out the backside, because there were these palm trees that no one cut for a long time. And she said the guy that is selling it had lived here for 2 years. So I figured, well, he probably never cut it for 2 years. Once I got on the roof, I saw there was a view, and she didn't know that. It was unbelievable that she didn't know that. But all she saw was palm fronds. And so I came in and I started whispering to my wife, and my wife had been outside looking at the garden and ended up talking to the neighbor. And the neighbor was a black lady. And my wife was very comfortable with black people. So she talked to her, and I, you know, I saw that there was a view, but the broker didn't know anything about this. And then we both come in, and she says, well, I can do better. We didn't say a thing, you know. We started whispering a little bit to each other, but I said, yeah, I want to bid on this place. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, why did she say that? Because she saw her talking to a black lady next door. And it's like, oh, you know, they're not going to like the place. And didn't bother us. It dropped the price $5,000. It was great. But we paid $85,000 for that place. It's now $1.5 million, you know, and that was 78. I mean, now you can't buy a mailbox for that. But the thing was a fluke, you know. It was because she thought that, oh no, I'm not gonna want to buy now. But yeah, we did. We wanted to live someplace, you know. Hey, that's part of growing up. That's my LA story for you. So, Yeah, that's where, and it's just gone. It's the center of the damn universe now in Silver Lake. People come from Sweden to to visit Silver Lake, not Hollywood anymore necessarily, or not, not LA. LA is just a big traffic jam. And they come to Silver Lake because it's got this cool thing going for it. And who knew that would happen? It was all old people in the old days.
Interesting.
Now it's all hipsters. And then that's the other thing. She passed away a few years ago, and so it's just been me. But even then, we would walk around down on streets, the main streets, and everybody was a third our age, and they're all spending like $1 million bills buying coffee and stuff, and it's like, where do these people get their money? They're too young to have that kind of money. It just drove me crazy, drove her crazy. But it's more like that now. Yeah, this is so. It's like, in town, come visit. Jimmy knows what I'm talking about, right? It's just like hipster central, and there's all these guys, they're in some kind of business. I have no idea what they are. And they're making more money than anybody. It's a
Bitcoin, man, all about the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Got in at the right time. Okay, we probably should wrap it up, Alex. It's close to 2.5 hours. Yeah. Okay. So
thank you very much once again. So our next thing is going to be our showcase in person on the 21st. And then for next month, we got Joanne Ledesma coming back again because she's always a whole lot of fun. And I think she's going to be able to talk a little bit more about the changes in how things work with, pitching and submitting to different things like that. I know that that's been a real big deal for a lot of people, even though they keep telling you, yeah, you're going to submit to film and TV. For myself, I have plenty of people in the inside, and it's bullshit. So I just want to let you know that right off the top of my head. Joanne may not say that, but I'm telling you, what's happening is that all these places figured it out, and so now they all hire their own inside staff people. So even if
well, it always is, I used to have a friend who was in a music class with me, a songwriting class, and this guy was a very successful copywriter for he did commercials, not the music. He did the words that went into commercials, and he was saying it's all being done by people who are just finding the right words to put in there, and it has nothing to do with the product. And it's getting worse and worse. And he says, I'm probably going to be out of a job in a few years. And this was years ago. And that was before so many people started doing all that music for it. And it's always, somebody just did it in a studio this size. And he had a keyboard that he probably couldn't play much and put it together. Some of them are kind of neat, but most of them are, they sound like machines. And I think it's just going to get worse.
Yeah,
so,
these people are actually, they're in the staff meetings. They'll have a staff meeting and say, okay, well, we need to have a commercial for peanut butter. Okay, fine. And instead of saying, what songs do we have? The people say, well, what's the peanut butter about? And they actually write it right there in the meeting on the spot. And then they have somebody else go out and produce it, and they're done. So really? Outside writers, outside stuff really rarely happens, even though there's all these libraries, even though people submit things,
tons of libraries.
Yeah, it's becoming all in-house now. And in fact, if you've got something that clicks from the outside, rather than, buying you out or using your stuff, they'll hire you as an inside person, and then you've got a contract and you've got to write stuff at a little less than minimum wage to make things happen. So all the way around, it's just not a really good deal for film and TV anymore. And that's the reason why I've always told people, don't wait for the movie, write it yourself. And
don't wait for the movie.
Yeah, don't wait for the movie.
You got to write the script. You got to do. It's like a Broadway play. You got to do the whole thing. Yeah.
I used to do that years ago. I did scoring on a minimal level, things that I could put together first on a 4-track and then later on, whatever came along at the time. I had an Atari of all things that I recorded stuff on. And it was kind of low rent. It wasn't for major movies. I actually took songwriting courses and film scoring at UCLA. And so I knew how to emphasize certain things in a film. The same thing applies to a song. So if you want to just be a songwriter, look at movies and see what they did musically there. And when there's a dangerous part, they're playing they're playing dangerous music. When they're playing love, it's just, it's obvious. But it's people are doing that now with their eyes closed. But the last thing they think of is the music. That's almost, I don't know well, some of you people are probably getting close to my age, but in the old days, every movie had a score of one kind or another. And then Jimmy knows. And then came what? Which movie changed everything?
Forrest Gump.
No. Forrest Gump was like that. But before Forrest Gump was that motorcycle movie.
Oh, Easy Rider.
Easy Rider. Every song in there is a song from the jukebox. Just came, a hit song you'd heard, and it was of more or less of that time. And it worked. And then right after that worked, there's 30 songs in that movie. No one scored anything. And it was just those things that were hit songs at one time, usually fairly close to that time, and dialogue, period. Made $1 squillion, and then so everybody started doing that in other movies. It didn't work in other movies. It worked in that movie, So that's how that all came about. And there's still people doing it, unless you're doing a Star Wars thing or something. Then you have a full-on orchestra all through the thing. But anyway, so it's time to go to bed, people. So thank you for letting me babble.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great seeing y'all, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again, Alex. I'll give you a
Good
call.
work, you guys.
Okay, have a good one. Good night, and thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.